It's the Can Report. Today we talk with AJ Elliott. AJ is a Waterloo Fire Rescue firefighter, along with being the team leader for our technical rescue team. We discuss what a technical rescue team is, what kind of calls they respond to, and the technical aspects of being on the team. We also talk about the future of technical rescue and AJ's vision for the future. I hope you enjoy. All right, today we're with AJ Elliott. AJ is a Waterloo firefighter, also the team leader for the technical rescue team. Welcome, Elliott.
Well, thank you. Thanks for having me.
We always start off a little bit the same, just to kind of get warmed up. We talk about who you are, where you come from, why you got to where you are.
I guess I've been in the fire service 10 years. I started as a volunteer in 2012, so that would put me 10 years. I got to it late. I don't know. Hindsight being what it is, I think every single job placement quiz I took in junior high and high school had like firefighter number one. Surprise, surprise, I'm not good at following directions sometimes. But I don't know. Had a couple of incidents that kind of, pushed me towards this. And the fire service up in our area, we live rurally, so there was, I guess I saw a couple needs and got involved.
How big was your volunteer department?
25 to 30 people.
Pretty common.
Yep.
State of Iowa, I think the average is 22.
Okay. Yep. So pretty typical. Suburb around town, they did responders, but not ambulance service. And they ran 5 pieces of apparatus in a small station. Like a lot of departments around. So the water rescue was kind of something that got me started and pushed into it. So again, I just kind of saw a need and ran with it as much as I could.
River rescue mostly,
right? So maybe we could back up. So the two things. So we have horses and we do a lot of horseback riding. And my mother-in-law actually had an accident out in the middle of nowhere, and we ended up having to airlift her out. And so a little bit of like geolocation. How do we find people? How do we do things like that?
Mm-hmm.
And get them out. And then the second one was we watched a young man dive in off the river into waist deep water. Same deal, except this time I knew exactly where we were, and it was just as it is sometimes, it's a challenge getting all those dots lined up.
Right.
As it goes through the telephone game. So there, and water rescue being part of it, and how this communication, how it all worked, because I didn't know anything at the time, and the rest is history. Here we are today.
Yeah. What'd you do before you were a firefighter then?
About everything, honestly. I'm a GM auto mechanic by education. So started there, figured out that I wasn't doing, rate work in a shop wasn't going to be the thing for me. A little too detail oriented, not quite quick enough. Kind of slid into diesel mechanics. That didn't work either. Wasn't my home. Did construction for a season. Ended up driving truck for a couple years, and then got into a lot of manufacturing. I ran a polymers department where we did a lot of plastics and rubber work, and then moved into steel manufacturing for a big local company, and started welding. Worked my way up into leadership there, running a kind of, elite's the wrong word, but a pretty self-sufficient small group of guys, and we ran their large industrial lasers and robotics and things like that. So
very blue-collar background.
Yeah.
At least as an adult.
Mm-hmm.
How'd you grow up?
Pretty much the same. I don't know if I'm clean for about 5 minutes after I take a shower.
Right.
So, but yeah, about the same. We moved quite a bit. Dad was a geologist, and then so we kind of started out west chasing oil fields, and then moved back here to Iowa and just bounced around as needed. It was the 80s. Not a good time to try to find new work when you move to a different state. Mm-hmm. So, but I don't know, I guess 4th grade, we moved back to the Waterloo Cedar Falls area.
Yeah.
I don't have a calculator, so I can't tell you when exactly that was.
This isn't a math class.
Right.
We're all right.
Yep. Math's hard. So, but yeah, been Waterloo, Cedar Falls, most of my memorable life. And then, sometime after graduation, I moved out of town.
Where were you born?
So, Greeley, Colorado.
Ah.
Both my sister and I were born in Colorado, and I think I was 3 when we came back.
Mm-hmm.
So family stuff.
Very good. Married?
Married.
How long are you married?
Oh God, that'd be 14 years.
I'll edit
just
it
just
so that you
very
remember.
recently.
Just
14 years. I had to check the month in my head. And again, math on the fly.
right. Very
It's
good.
tough.
And you have some kids.
So yep, we got 3. We got 2 boys and a girl, 7, 4, and 2. We stay busy.
Mm-hmm.
So
when you went from the last job you had before you became a firefighter, as you ran that welding company, what kind of hours did you put in there, and how was that different than going from the 24 on 48 off?
it was so I've worked unconventional hours for a long time. So probably starting with the truck driving. Starting with truck driving, a lot of that was nighttime or like early morning into the day. Long hours, 60, 70-hour weeks, sleep when you can. And then I got off the road and then worked for, started in manufacturing, and then ended up having to do 2 and sometimes 3 jobs just to make things squared away. So there again, working nights and just making it happen. And then when I got into the steel stuff, it was the weekend shift is what we called it. But so it was like second shift hours, but we worked Wednesday through Saturday. So again, 4 days unconventional, usually 12, sometimes longer days, overtime if you wanted it. So it was the 24/48 was new, but I mean, adapting to an unconventional schedule wasn't that bad. And when I hired, we had just had, our oldest son wasn't even 1 yet. So, I mean, we were still relatively flexible.
Right.
So,
what year did you join the fire department?
It would have been 2015
And
in October.
What year did you join the tech rescue team?
October of 2016.
So,
Yep.
Probably as soon as you could,
Yep.
you joined up.
Yep. So generally, we want our members to have their year on out of probation. We've made a couple of exceptions for well qualified people and things like that. We don't want to turn away good help usually. So
Right.
So I got my year on, and then I think the first chance I had, I was on the tech rescue team and the hazmat team as well.
How many members are on the team now?
I'd have to check the roster. I think it's 20. It's usually about 25.
All Waterloo Fire personnel?
All Waterloo Fire personnel.
Right. How often do you train?
So typically we meet once a month, and we'll do, as much hands-on as we can. I try to get out at least an hour's worth of self-study for guys if they want on their own. That can be anything from documents, reading articles, YouTube videos, whatever we can find. And try to tie that in with what we're going to be doing in the training when we meet up. So kind of look at it on your own, kind of get a hang of it. I found it kind of just helps bridge a lot of stuff. Going into it, we don't have to spend as much time with learning it all from the get-go. Plus, everybody's always looking for good hours
Right.
for training to get on board. So,
What drew you to want to be on the tech rescue team?
I just thought it was cool. I don't know. It's probably the same thing that brought me to the fire department. It's kind of I don't like the word elite makes me uncomfortable, but it's something that not everybody does. And I don't know, that just appeals to me in some fashion, I guess. There was a need for it too, I guess. Sometimes, I kind of felt like you're not necessarily expected to, but as a younger guy coming on the job, making sure that you do your part, and maybe is the right way to put it, I guess.
For sure.
So, I kind of got into it, and then I just really enjoyed it. And then over the years, that kind of, somebody needed to take the helm. There was an opening for for the leadership position, and somebody needed to take ownership of the team. So,
well, and this is certainly for me. It's in the name. It's tech rescue. It's a very technical aspect of this job that, for me, and it's always been a struggle because I can tie knots with you all day, provided you were showing me how to tie the knots. And then
you're not alone.
Right. You bet. This is super simple, AJ. I don't need to learn all these knots.
Right.
And then literally you will walk out that door. Someone will ask me how to tie that knot, and I'll you have to get AJ.
And you're going, I got Velcro shoes on. Sorry.
Yeah. I'm going to tie a granny knot, and if I have to, I'll cut it with my knife.
Right.
To get it undone.
Sure.
That doesn't work with tech rescue.
No. And I always joke and tell people I probably have prescription grade CDO, which is OCD, but it's got to be alphabetical,
Right.
and so I don't, maybe it was just a good fit, and things like that. But yeah, definitely detail oriented, which has always been a part of me, and a constant learning. Kind of just quick scan back over my job history. A lot of that is, almost every time I've come to a different thing, I've had to start from scratch. And learn the whole thing, learn the business, learn the company, learn, even with the industry, the lasers and robotics, that's all different languages. It's all, so I probably lifelong learner, I think is a category
that's a good category to
right,
be in.
in some trait thing. And so it provides a good, outlet's probably the wrong word, but it's good to have something that I can, constantly have a target to keep learning and
absolutely.
moving forward. So
that's we want to, as a battalion chief, I want to exploit, and I'll straight up say exploit the best things that you're interested in, right? So AJ really likes tech rescue. Guess what happens when I have a tech rescue call? I don't care where AJ's at. AJ is going to come to the scene. But being on the team, we have that ability to call an entire team event in if we have a major incident. One comes to mind of we had a worker that fell in one of the water towers.
Right.
That's a full-blown tech rescue team. If it was a matter of life safety or of life of a rescue, our department can make those types of knots, can make those types of rescues. However, we can do it safer with an entire team response.
Absolutely.
When we call for a team response, what are we getting?
So you're generally going to get, Station 2 is where we house all of this equipment, and that engine is, carries some stuff too. So you're going to get that truck and that engine, and then as much of the team is available to respond. The trailer itself carries most of our equipment. We have limited shoring, or I guess limited like strong backs, and I don't want to get too far into the weeds of the parts but this is all like trench rescue. A lot of it's lumber. If it were to come to a trench situation, and it's difficult to house and it's not very practical. We've got some plans in place if we need a bunch of it. But so there's a little bit of that. We have our confined space equipment, which is going to be the pieces that we use for supplied air. So you get into everything has cords and hoses. Generally, we shy away from the traditional SCBA, and that just has to do with the environment and how things work. So we have all that equipment. We have the communication systems for those types of incidents, fans and things to manage the atmosphere as best we can. And then we have all of our high angle and our rope rescue equipment, or the majority of it. So all of our ropes, our harnesses, all of our soft goods, and equipment is on there, helmets, and then we also have a cascade system. And then so Engine 2, and then there's a few pieces that are scattered amongst some of our rescue engines and the aerial, but that would be like the Stokes, basket, or a litter. Some people call it that. And then the tripod that we have usually rides on that engine as well.
Right.
So
you mentioned them briefly, and let's talk about each one. You mentioned the three main categories for technical rescue are high angle, confined space,
yes,
and trench.
Right. That's kind of how we categorize them, and we group them together. Can
you give me what makes something a high angle rescue?
So I believe it's anything over 60 degrees is kind of how they the technical speak of it, but and that's really, I would try to, anytime we're going to start employing, the equipment and tactics that we would use for that is when there's like a fall concern. So falling over an edge, or even falling down an embankment, even some of the ditches and stuff that we have around here with the overpasses, you could make the argument that setting up some of these, systems to keep people just from slipping, or losing a patient or equipment down, these would all be beneficial places where we would employ high angle tactics, I guess is the best way to put it.
And that's a great example of when we use those types of things by just having team members on the trucks throughout the city.
Yes.
We have 25 people on average. That's eight people per shift, and I know it's not perfect.
Right.
But we've always hopefully got those people that when we do have a car accident and they roll down the mix master and it's 100 yards down and it's a fairly steep angle,
Right.
we have those people that can immediately start to rig up the riggings so that we can be safe, we can get the patient out safely as well.
Yeah, and I try to stress that to the team. It sounds cliche, but I really try to the mindset to have the team so strong that nobody knows who the leader is, and I stress to the team, it's you guys could easily be, the leadership in one of these, or be the one that's called upon. Whoever's on duty that day, whoever's at that scene, like, hey, you're on the roster, you're on the team. I need you to set this up for me.
Mm-hmm.
And making sure that guys are solid and confident and capable of doing those types of things, I guess is something that I try to direct us as the leader, and I think that the team as a whole strives to be that person.
Yeah, that's what I've seen as well.
Yeah.
Trench rescue. What's the definition of a trench? How do you go about a trench rescue?
So a trench is anything that's, I guess generally it's anything that's deeper than it is wide, and that's versus an excavation would be the opposite. So I don't, without getting into the OSHA stuff. But even something that's maybe waist deep could technically be considered a trench rescue. But mostly what we're dealing with is cave-ins on construction sites. So it's guys that are maybe putting in foundations, anything where they're digging, typically. And then when that if there's some kind of an engulfment or the dirt caves in, then it's how do we manage that to get in there and try to render aid to the patient and start getting them out. So then we use I was talking about their big plywood. They're called a strong back, but we have ways and systems where we can start setting these things up to protect the patient and make it safe for us to start getting in there and doing whatever it is we need to do. So like I said, we carry a limited amount of the of those wood pieces, and then we have a pretty good complement of air shores is what they are, but they're big pneumatic cylinders basically that we use to push against and to stabilize that unstable ground.
Mm-hmm. And then finally, confined space.
Confined space is probably the broadest category, and you kind of, again, you get into a bunch of definitions, but it's small spaces or even large spaces that aren't meant for people to be in continuously is about the simplest version. So, holding tanks, storm sewer pipes, sewer pipes at that. A lot of it's common in industry. So we have to watch atmospheric conditions is stuff that we deal with. A lot of the stuff that comes from the other ones, and oftentimes high angle and rope systems will be incorporated into confined space as well. So it's a really important one. It's probably, I think, amongst, when we talk about the hazards that we have in the area, confined space is usually at the top, just because of the infrastructure and the industry that we have in town, as far as the likelihood or the probability that we would have an incident to respond to.
Right.
Confined spaces is that one.
So there's two big groups with our department. It's the tech rescue team and it's the hazmat team. Mm-hmm. The hazmat team has a defined territory that helps pay for all its equipment, pays for its training. What's the tech where does the tech rescue's territory end?
To the best of my knowledge, that's up to the chief or the battalion chief on hand. It would be, my understanding is that the resources as the tech rescue team extend as far as our mutual aid agreements and anybody that would call and ask for help. A lot of the equipment and things that we have, most departments don't have it. And at that, the amount of time that it takes to stay, competent and competent in using these things is a pretty big commitment. And that's, like I said, just, typically our trainings are 2 hours. And then, like I said, anything else that I can get them in the meantime, but at least we have that, on a routine basis, and guys do their own training on the sides too. Mm-hmm. So I would hope that it's somewhere, at least 5 hours a month that guys are putting in to our craft, and because all of the skills are perishable.
Absolutely.
And
right.
So if you don't do them and you don't stay up on it, then so I guess kind of veered off a little bit, but I didn't realize until I took over the team. But I think a lot of surrounding departments are will count on us if they have an incident, and they're going to make the phone call and say, hey, can you send a couple guys, or at least come help us out, offer some advice. I assume that's
the very
absolutely. I know for a fact that there are departments. We actually have written mutual aid agreements with some industries that aren't in our territory, but that if they have an incident, that we will respond.
You talked about training. We've got a diamond in the rough a little bit with our regional training center. What kind of training can you do out at that training center as Tech Rescue?
So we can do. So we have the tunnels. So there's a set of galvanized pipe, and there's all kinds of stuff, but it's all buried underground. There's various access points. One of them's through an above ground tank, another is through a small building, and then we have some horizontal entrances around. With those, we can set up and train for a pretty wide variety of confined space incidents. So if we need to use, we can set up the tripod, for example, which we can simulate, like a manhole and things like that.
Right. And what a tripod does, explain real quick.
So a tripod is going to give us like an artificial high point. So we can set this up, and it gives us a means to use ropes to lower somebody down, or maybe not lower them down, but maybe lift somebody up. So if there's somebody disabled, we may be able to climb a ladder to get down, but we're going to need some kind of system to bring that patient back up if they need to. So that's kind of the confined space, and there's multiple tunnels, and that's generally the drills that we'll run. We'll set up our all of our supplied air systems and our communication systems, and then we'll hide another person, or we'll put any number of our dummies down there, and it's find them, package them, and bring them out. And those are usually more in-depth trainings. We don't necessarily get the evolutions that we do with some smaller ones, but you definitely work through a lot of problems and a lot of real-life things that you deal with. So those are always good trainings. We have the training tower, so that's a 4-story with a big engineered anchor point on the top. So we do a lot of our rappelling, and a lot of our rope stuff is done off of that. We can do drills where we can do pickoffs. So if somebody maybe they're capable, but their system has become disabled. So they're their window washer, let's say, and maybe whatever they have that gets them there is just broke, and they just need help. So we can train on how to safely put them onto a different system and get them up or down. Likewise with somebody that has a medical incident. So they're incapacitated or they're unresponsive. That changes the game a lot as to how we deal with that. We've done some stuff with geared towards arborist work. There's a lot of guys that work in buckets or climb trees and do things like that. And so that's kind of a new thing that I brought. That's kind of an off day hobby of mine, is climbing trees. So I can bring a little bit of personal experience with that. And then we can we've done some extra training this year with the aerial, using that as a high point and to do some different maneuvers. We've used we have the burn building out there, which is a completely different structure. That gives us a few things. It's got a lot of big steel beams, and it has extra windows. So sometimes we'll do drills on creating unconventional anchors. If you need to be able to go out this door, but you don't have anything straight out the door, then we have to build whatever we need. So I don't know. We kind of get good at just making whatever work, because a lot of times that's what we got to do, is we got to work with whatever we can find.
Right. I think that's one of the things that a lot of people miss in any type of rope rescue is the rope has to be straight to work.
Yep.
You can have some changes of direction, but you have to have those changes of directions planned.
Right.
And you have to make sure that they work that way. And you have to understand that when you don't have a straight line, you are now losing strength. When you start to lose strength, you start to lose the strength in the rope itself. Now, is that rope the big enough rope for what you have to do? We joked a little bit ago about this isn't a math class, but it quickly turns into
absolutely
some math problems in your head that you have to finish right away.
So, and we try to work through. I'm big on like corny little silly things, because I think guys remember them. They might, maybe they'll poke fun, down the road, like, oh, here we go again. But sometimes it's those easy little things that I feel like most people know who Graham Gordon is, but the whole high risk, low frequency kind of stuff.
Absolutely, this is absolutely
exactly
in that box.
Right. But just like guys remember that because it's kind of it's funny to watch and things. So, but I try to bring some of that to where hopefully guys remember it. We may not remember the math exactly, but we know it helps us remember the box that we need to stay in. And if we're outside that box or we're close to it, then then we recognize that we need to maybe pump the brakes for a second and maybe do the math problem,
right,
and make sure that we're safe and where we need to be.
Right. Anytime I've ever sat in on a class, whether when I was a lieutenant on the rescue truck or as a battalion chief going out there to watch, I'm always amazed on. It's once everybody gets into tech rescue mode, it's almost its own little cult where
probably
you can. I'm not part of the cult, so I can watch, but please don't touch the rope.
Yeah.
Can you just please get back a little bit? The knots are always dressed, and by dressed I mean there's no extra kinks in them or turns in them. They look exactly like the book shows it. You don't step on ropes. Anything that has to do with confined space, there's no more joking around because even though it's training, we're still training in a confined space.
Yep.
Anything can happen when things can happen.
And we do it that way. And it's a good point, because even when we are training, we're still carrying meters. We still monitor the atmosphere because it's still underground. And, we don't know, what's down there. There's always that kind of deal. So, and then too, it's, you're still 30 feet off the ground, or you got somebody that's hanging there, and we're doing these things, and we'll always in training we make sure that we have safety's engineered, and we're definitely overkill on maybe what we might do under certain situations at an incident, but it gets pretty situational. But
right.
But yeah, no, it's I'm glad that people notice that, because that's what we kind of strive for, and it's definitely a mindset.
And you're not simulating crawling through a 20-foot, 18-inch culvert under 20 feet of soil.
Right.
You're really doing it.
Yeah.
You're simulating a victim on the other end, but you're doing that skill, which is inherently dangerous of itself.
Right.
So it's awesome. I love watching them do that, and I'm totally envious because, again, it's going to be a granny knot, and I have to tie it with a knot, and I'll probably cut it after I'm done. But
we got you.
Right. It's one of the best things of being a battalion chief is I can simply just point to someone and say, "Oh, why don't you do this?"
Right. Where's that guy?
Yeah, the one guy with the knots. What else do you want from the team? Where do you see the team going in the future?
I think there's a shared vision. So I just took over and followed some great leaders previously, but like all things, everybody's got a little bit different vision, a little bit different path. I'm a lot younger than either of the previous two, so I hope to be here for a while. So I don't know if that changes things, but I think there's a desire to be, I don't know how to say it without it like sounding poorly, but to be, I don't know, high speed, low drag, to be faster at what we're doing. So I'm trying to make some contacts and do some things to get a better handle on what we could run into in the area. So I don't know, like a hazard assessment, I suppose. So like, what do we have for water towers? If somebody gets disabled on a cell tower, well, a lot of industry does self-training for self-rescue. So odds are we might not be called for that, but at the same time, that's the infrastructure that we have. So looking at, what are those guys doing and how are they doing it and what can we do, to be fast. So like there's 15 minutes is kind of the golden time frame for somebody that's hanging suspended. So we're going to talk about ropes because that's kind of been my focus, I guess, lately here. But if somebody were to fall, whether it's on a job site or an industry, 15 minutes suspended is pretty hard on the body. And you're looking at significant injuries, blood flow, circulation, and all those kinds of things. So if they don't have a team that's there to self-rescue them, by the time we get on scene, we're probably knocking on 15 minutes. By the time that they're in trouble, somebody makes the call, dispatch,
Right.
transport, and we're actually standing there looking at it. So what are the things that we can do as a team and set us up so we're faster, so that we can just go. So I'm trying to maybe like grouping gear together, having things pre-rigged and pre-set up. So one of them, an idea I'm kind of that we're embracing is like a lead climber. So where we will have like a big backpack, and then so we can immediately send, even if before we would have to do a callback, we could have, say, somebody at station 2, we need these 2 bags out of that trailer and bring them with you.
Mm-hmm.
And then so whoever the on shift, battalion chief can say, send me these 2 guys. And anyway, so that you grab that bag, you throw it on, and everything you need is there. And in hopefully less than 2 minutes, you're dressed and beginning to mitigate as best as you can. So I know that there's there's some vocabulary in there that maybe not everybody is up to speed with, but how can we make it faster? How can we do it better? Technology's come a lot of way. There's a lot of hardware now that replaces a lot of other hardware. So in the old days, we had this, you'd make, to be able to work up to transition from raising somebody and then turning around and lowering them, which is a very important maneuver that we do a lot.
Mm-hmm.
You can do it with ropes and pulleys and all kinds of hardware that takes up a bunch of space. It's a lot of bulk. And or you can you can buy one rated device that does all of those jobs, and it's a fraction. So kind of updating what we have for equipment is a big thing that I'd like to do. Cultivating these relationships with industry, like reaching out to telecom companies. 5G cellular service is something that's kind of on my radar. I know there's a lot that I don't know, and that's kind of why I want to know about it, because they're starting to incorporate transceivers into the facades of buildings and things like that. So are these hazards that we're gonna, where we're probably not gonna be climbing a cell tower, but if we have a window washer and we have to go down past these, the water tower incident that you brought up earlier, that's probably one of the most memorable responses the team has had. You look at the water towers now, and it's nothing but antennas, around the rails of those. So here again, what kind of hazard does that pose? There's some technology stuff, but all of those, like how do we learn what we need to learn so that we know what we didn't know before?
Right. Awesome. Anything else?
I don't know.
Awesome. AJ Elliott, I appreciate you coming in.
I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'd like to thank AJ for stopping in today. We appreciate the fact that he kept it fairly simple terminology department for me so I could keep up. A lot of people like to think that all those things would be exhilarating and fun, but the thing to remember is they're never safe unless we make them safe. To make them safe, they have to have due diligence, they have to have proper training, they have to have proper equipment. They don't fall into those categories by luck. They work hard to reach those levels of expertise. As always, the show doesn't rely just on me. I'd like to thank my producer, Angie Beck, for knowing what buttons to push. Our original music was from Caleb Martin, and we'd like to thank AJ Elliott again for coming in. Until next time, this is the Can Report. Get your voice heard.